What separates a leader from the rest? It's not just vision or intelligence, it's the way they speak. Leaders command attention, inspire action, and turn words into influence. But here's the truth. Anyone can learn to talk like a leader. Welcome to How to Talk Like a Leader, the ultimate guide to mastering the language of leadership. Whether you're leading a team, pitching an idea, or stepping into your full potential, this audiobook will teach you powerful communication strategies used by top leaders to inspire, influence, and lead with confidence. How to speak with clarity, charisma, and conviction. Words create worlds. Inside, you'll discover the 3 speech patterns of highly effective leaders, how to project confidence even when you're nervous, powerful phrases that inspire trust and action, secrets to handling tough questions and criticism, the one mistake that makes people sound weak, and many more. Chapter 1. The Power of Leadership Language. How you speak defines how you're perceived because people instinctively judge your competence, confidence, and credibility based on your communication, often within seconds. Before your ideas are evaluated, your voice, tone, and choice of words are already shaping how others feel about you. In leadership, this matters deeply. The way you speak isn't just an exchange of information, it's a signal. It tells others whether they can trust you, follow you, and believe in your direction. We live in a world where attention spans are short, and impressions are formed instantly. Your speech, how clearly you express yourself, how confidently you deliver your message, and how effectively you listen acts as a filter through which people decide who you are and whether you're worth listening to. This is why 2 people can say the exact same thing, and only one of them will be taken seriously. It's not just the message that matters, but the messenger's presence. If your tone is hesitant, overly apologetic, or full of filler words, people may assume you're unsure even if your content is solid. On the other hand, when you speak with clarity and calm authority, you project confidence and invite trust. People want to follow those who sound like they know where they're going. When your words are deliberate, your pace controlled, and your body language aligned, you're seen not just as someone talking, but as someone leading. Your choice of words also plays a major role. Leaders who ramble, use vague expressions, or rely on jargon often create confusion or appear unprepared. But when you speak in simple, precise language that's tailored to your audience, you show that you understand your message and care enough to make it clear. This builds respect. People perceive you as thoughtful, focused, and effective. How you speak also reveals how you think. Do you pause before you speak, or do you rush to fill silence? Do you reflect and ask questions, or dominate the conversation? Do you listen fully, or wait for your turn to talk? These subtle cues communicate far more than your words alone. They reveal your emotional intelligence, your discipline, and your regard for others. And those qualities often speak louder than the content of your message. In leadership, perception shapes reality. If you're perceived as articulate, grounded, and insightful, people are more likely to believe in your vision even before you've proven it. But if your speech patterns suggest uncertainty, defensiveness, or lack of awareness, people will second-guess your ideas, even if they're brilliant. Your voice becomes your first proof of leadership. This doesn't mean you need to speak perfectly or rehearse every sentence. What matters most is intentionality. Do your words reflect your values? Does your tone reflect your confidence? Does your delivery invite trust or defensiveness? When these things align, you become more than someone who communicates well. You become someone who commands attention, earns respect, and leads with presence. People don't just remember what you said, they remember how you made them feel. And how you speak is what creates that feeling. Whether in a boardroom, on a stage, or in a one-on-one conversation, your voice is your leadership fingerprint. It tells the world who you are, long before your resume or results ever do. The 3 speech patterns of highly effective leaders. The speech patterns of highly effective leaders aren't just about what they say, they're about how they say it. These patterns create presence, build trust, and drive results. When leaders speak with intention, clarity, and emotional intelligence, they command respect not through force, but through influence. The most impactful leaders consistently use 3 core speech patterns that signal credibility, inspire followership, and move people to act. 1. Clear, decisive language. Highly effective leaders speak with clarity and certainty. Their language is free of unnecessary qualifiers, filler words, and confusing jargon. Instead of saying, "I think we might be able to try this approach," they say, "Here's the plan," or "Let's move forward with this solution." This decisive tone doesn't come from arrogance, it comes from preparation, alignment with values, and a commitment to take ownership. Clear speech also eliminates ambiguity. Instead of vague phrases like ASAP or maybe later, effective leaders use specifics. "Let's have the report by 3 p.m. Thursday," or "We'll revisit this after the next round of client feedback." This precision eliminates guesswork and reduces the risk of miscommunication. People feel more secure and more motivated when they know exactly what's expected and what's at stake. This clarity extends to decision-making language. Great leaders don't speak in circles or rely on indecisive statements. Even when they don't have all the answers, they say so honestly. "Here's what we know. Here's what we're still exploring. Here's our next step." This transparency builds credibility and ensures that everyone stays aligned, even in uncertainty. 2. Inclusive and empowering questions. The second pattern is the strategic use of questions that invite contribution, reflection, and ownership. Instead of simply issuing commands, effective leaders ask questions like, "What's your take on this? How do you think we can improve it? What's one obstacle we're not seeing yet?" These questions serve 2 purposes. They extract valuable insight, and they make others feel seen and valued. When team members are invited into the conversation, they're more likely to buy into the solution. This pattern creates a sense of shared ownership, not just compliance. Empowering questions also turn conflict into collaboration. Rather than responding to disagreement with defensiveness, effective leaders ask, "What's your perspective?" or "What are you hoping we can achieve here?" These types of questions reduce emotional tension and redirect the conversation toward mutual goals. They demonstrate humility, an essential component of influence. Finally, asking questions fosters a culture of learning. Leaders who regularly ask their teams, "What did we learn from this?" or "What can we try differently next time?" reinforce continuous improvement and psychological safety. 3. Purpose-driven framing. The third speech pattern centers around always connecting communication to the why. Effective leaders don't just focus on tasks or procedures. They frame everything within the larger mission, values, and desired outcome. They're masters of translating the mundane into the meaningful. For example, instead of saying, "We need to meet the numbers this quarter," they say, "Hitting these targets allows us to invest in better tools for you and expand our impact in the market." Instead of, "Let's tighten the process," they say, "Let's make this easier for our clients and save the team time." This pattern transforms instructions into inspiration. Purpose-driven framing ensures that every message supports something bigger than the moment. It motivates people not out of fear or pressure, but from a sense of contribution and pride. It also helps people prioritize. When they understand why something matters, they're more likely to focus, act quickly, and deliver with excellence. This pattern also shows up in how leaders communicate during hard times. Rather than saying, "We're facing setbacks," they say, "This is a challenge we're equipped to grow through." It's tough, but it's building our resilience and shaping how we lead tomorrow. They give people context, meaning, and a reason to keep going. The 3 speech patterns of highly effective leaders: clear and decisive language, empowering questions, and purpose-driven framing are not just habits. They're tools of influence that create clarity, trust, and movement. When practiced daily, these patterns turn ordinary communication into leadership communication. They don't just get people to listen. They get people to believe, engage, and act. And that's what defines a voice that leads. How to project confidence even when you're nervous. Projecting confidence even when you're nervous. A skill that every effective leader, speaker, or professional learns to master. Contrary to popular belief, confidence is not the absence of fear or nerves, it's the ability to act with intention despite them. Everyone feels anxiety before high-pressure moments, but those who appear composed have developed techniques that project steadiness and control. The good news? These techniques are learnable and can become second nature with consistent practice. The first key to projecting confidence is mastering your body language. Your posture sends a message before your mouth says a word. When you stand tall, square your shoulders, keep your chin level, and avoid fidgeting, you signal to others and to your own nervous system that you are grounded and in control. Even if your heart is racing, anchoring yourself physically helps reduce the perception of fear. A firm stance with feet shoulder-width apart creates stability and presence, while keeping your hands visible and open conveys honesty and calm. Next, focus on eye contact. Avoiding someone's gaze can suggest insecurity, even if your words are strong. Steady, warm eye contact helps build trust and signals engagement. The goal is not to stare, but to connect. Look at one person at a time if you're speaking to a group, or alternate between listeners in one-on-one interactions. This habit not only communicates confidence to others, it helps you feel more present and connected in the moment. Another powerful tool is controlled breathing. When you're nervous, your breath tends to become shallow and rapid, feeding anxiety and making your voice shaky. Before any important conversation or presentation, take a few slow, deep breaths to calm your nervous system. Breathe in through your nose for 4 counts, hold for 4, and exhale slowly through your mouth for 6. This simple technique slows your heart rate and sends your brain the message that you're safe and ready. Then there's your voice. Confident speech is marked by a steady pace, clear enunciation, and appropriate pauses. Nervous speakers tend to rush, mumble, or speak in a higher pitch. Train yourself to slow down. Pause between thoughts to let your words land. Silence, when intentional, is not awkward, it's powerful. It gives you control of the rhythm and signals that you're thinking, not scrambling. Preparation is also a major part of confidence. Know your material, rehearse it, and anticipate potential questions. When you walk into a conversation or presentation prepared, your body and mind naturally feel more at ease. Even if nerves strike, your preparation becomes a safety net that allows you to focus on delivery rather than survival. But what if you can't fully prepare? Then lean on structure. Have a simple outline in your head, a clear beginning, middle, and end to what you want to say. When your mind has a roadmap, you're less likely to freeze or ramble. Structure gives your thoughts direction, which helps you stay composed. Self-talk also plays a crucial role. Nervousness often comes from internal dialogue. What if I mess up? Or, they'll see I'm anxious. Replace those thoughts with intentional, empowering affirmations. I've prepared for this. I can handle whatever comes up. Or, I'm here to serve, not to be perfect. Speak to yourself the way a calm mentor would, not a harsh critic. Embrace the nerves. Don't fight them. Acknowledge them, and then channel them into energy. Many great speakers use nervousness as fuel. It sharpens their focus and brings vitality to their words. Remember, your goal isn't to eliminate nervousness, it's to lead through it. Projecting confidence isn't about being fearless, it's about being steady. It's the result of choosing presence over panic, preparation over perfection, and purpose over fear. With practice, you'll find that others will see confidence in you long before you even fully feel it yourself. And eventually, that projected confidence becomes real. Powerful phrases that inspire trust and action. Powerful phrases that inspire trust and action aren't complex or poetic. They are clear, intentional, and emotionally intelligent. The words you choose in leadership carry weight, and certain phrases can build bridges, spark motivation, and unlock commitment more effectively than commands or data ever could. Whether you're leading a team, coaching someone, or trying to influence a room, your language should do more than instruct, it should connect and empower. One of the most trust-building phrases is, "I hear you." It's simple but deeply affirming. When someone shares a concern, frustration, or idea, acknowledging them with, "I hear you," signals that their voice matters. This doesn't mean you have to agree, but it shows you're present and listening. People who feel heard are far more likely to stay engaged and receptive to feedback, direction, or change. Another powerful phrase, "Here's what I'm thinking, tell me what I'm missing." This invites collaboration and removes ego. It communicates confidence and humility. You're presenting your perspective, but making it clear you're open to better ideas. It empowers your team to challenge assumptions, contribute, and take ownership without fearing backlash. Trust grows when people feel their insights are not only welcomed, but needed. Use "we're in this together" to reinforce unity and shared responsibility. Especially during tough transitions or high-pressure moments, this phrase dissolves isolation. It assures your team that you're not handing them a problem, you're walking with them through it. It's a rallying phrase that fosters loyalty, lowers anxiety, and increases resilience. When you want to inspire action, try, "What's the first step you can take right now?" This shifts focus from overwhelm to momentum. It's far more effective than vague motivation like, "Just go for it." This phrase helps people identify tangible, manageable actions and builds their sense of capability. Confidence doesn't come from pep talks, it comes from doing, and this phrase nudges people into motion. To diffuse tension and open up tough conversations, say, "Help me understand." Instead of launching into defense mode or making assumptions, this phrase creates space for explanation. It lowers walls and signals that your intention is clarity, not control. You're saying, "I value your perspective enough to slow down and truly listen." Another action-driving phrase is, "Let's solve this together." These 5 words change the emotional tone of problem-solving. Rather than blaming or delegating from above, you're stepping into the trenches with your team. It motivates people not through fear or pressure, but through partnership. This phrase is especially powerful in conflict resolution or decision-making. To reinforce growth, use, "I believe in you." It might sound basic, but this phrase carries enormous psychological weight. It builds internal confidence and creates a mirror for the identity you see in someone, even if they haven't fully stepped into it yet. Great leaders help people see themselves in a higher light, and this phrase plants the seed. To drive ownership and autonomy, say, "What do you think we should do?" When you use this phrase genuinely, not as a test, you show that you trust the other person's judgment. It encourages initiative and leadership at every level. People rise to the level of expectation, and this question communicates, "I see you as capable." When closing a conversation or committing to an action plan, say, "Here's what I'll doubt about you." This models accountability and inspires reciprocation. It sets a tone of mutual responsibility, not top-down direction. It's a subtle but powerful way to lead by example and create a culture of follow-through. When things go wrong, the most powerful trust-building phrase is, "I take responsibility." Leaders who own mistakes openly and without excuse create psychological safety. It shows character and maturity. And when people see you hold yourself accountable, they're far more likely to do the same. Powerful phrases don't require flowery language or motivational cliches. They require intentionality, empathy, and courage. They speak to people's minds and hearts. And when used consistently, these phrases don't just inspire trust and action, they shape culture, elevate morale, and turn everyday communication into extraordinary leadership. Secrets to handling tough questions and criticism. Handling tough questions and criticism with grace is a defining trait of strong communicators and respected leaders. It's easy to speak confidently when everything is going smoothly, but the real test of leadership and credibility is how you respond under pressure, especially when you're being challenged, doubted, or criticized. The secret lies not in having the perfect answer, but in managing your mindset, emotional response, and delivery with composure and clarity. The first key is to stay calm, especially when you feel attacked. Tough questions can trigger defensiveness, but reacting emotionally weakens your presence. People aren't just listening to your answer, they're watching your reaction. A pause before you speak is one of the most powerful tools you have. It shows self-control, gives you space to think, and prevents rash or regrettable replies. A calm, grounded response immediately sets a mature tone and signals authority. Next, don't dodge the question, own it. One of the quickest ways to lose trust is to deflect, ramble, or become evasive. Even if the question is unfair or aggressive, address it directly. Say, "That's a fair question," or "Let's talk about that." Acknowledging the concern shows respect for the person asking, even if you disagree, and demonstrates that you're not afraid to be transparent or accountable. If you don't have an answer yet, admit it without shame, but follow with action. Say, "I don't have that information right now, but I'll find out and follow up." Or, "That's something we're still evaluating, and I want to make sure I give you a complete answer." Confidence doesn't come from pretending to know everything. It comes from knowing how to respond honestly without losing credibility. When dealing with criticism, separate the message from the tone. Not all criticism is delivered gracefully, but that doesn't mean it lacks value. Train yourself to listen for the truth beneath the delivery. Ask, "What can I learn from this?" If there's something actionable, take it. If not, let it go. Responding with curiosity rather than defensiveness turns criticism into a leadership moment. You might say, "I appreciate the feedback even if it's tough to hear. Let's explore how we can improve this." One secret to handling criticism well is to thank the person even if their delivery was harsh. A simple, "Thanks for bringing that up," or "I hear what you're saying," diffuses tension and shows emotional intelligence. This doesn't mean you're agreeing, it means you're controlling the emotional temperature of the conversation. It's also important to reframe criticism as a conversation, not a confrontation. If someone challenges your ideas in a meeting, instead of pushing back with defensiveness, say, "That's an interesting perspective. Can you walk me through your thinking?" This shows openness and turns the moment into collaboration rather than conflict. Use bridging techniques to stay on track. If a question veers into hostile or irrelevant territory, guide it back respectfully. For example, "That's one part of the equation, but what I'd really like to highlight is," or "Let's refocus on the main goal here." Bridging keeps you in control without ignoring the question. When a question is loaded or designed to trap you, respond with clarity, not complexity. Keep your answers simple, focused, and tied to your values. Don't feel pressured to say more than necessary. Over-explaining often opens the door to more scrutiny. Instead, Speak directly and confidently, then stop. Debrief yourself afterward. Handling tough questions and criticism is a skill you build over time. After each experience, ask, what went well? What could I have handled better? How did I feel and why? Self-awareness and practice sharpen your ability to handle future challenges with even greater strength. Handling tough questions and criticism is less about having the perfect comeback and more about being composed, honest, and grounded in your purpose. When people see you remain calm under fire, acknowledge truth without fear, and communicate with both firmness and grace, they don't just respect your words, they respect you. That's the true secret, turning every challenge into a chance to lead better. And the one mistake that makes people sound weak. The one mistake that makes people sound weak, whether in conversation, presentations, interviews, or leadership, is undermining their own words while they're speaking them. This often takes the form of hedging language, apologetic tone, or filler statements that dilute confidence. It's not just what you say, it's how much you believe it while you're saying it. Phrases like, "I'm not sure if this makes sense, but," "this might be a stupid idea, but," or "I could be wrong, but," are examples of self-sabotaging speech. They immediately weaken your credibility by signaling uncertainty before you've even made your point. Instead of drawing people in, these phrases raise doubt in your listener's mind even if your idea is strong. You're giving away your power before the conversation truly begins. This mistake is especially common among intelligent, thoughtful people who don't want to come across as arrogant or overly assertive. Ironically, their desire to appear humble ends up sounding unsure or insecure. Confidence and humility can and should coexist, but there's a critical difference between being open to feedback and preemptively dismissing yourself. Another form of this mistake is constantly seeking permission to speak, using phrases like, "Does that make sense?" or "You know what I mean?" repeatedly, even when your point was clear. Overusing these phrases signals that you're not confident your message landed. A confident speaker assumes clarity unless asked for clarification. Even tone and body language can fall into this trap. A downward inflection at the end of your sentence, turning statements into questions, can make you sound like you're not sure of what you're saying. Nervous laughter, excessive fidgeting, or avoiding eye contact also subtly communicate self-doubt even if your words are solid. The core of this mistake lies in a lack of ownership. Powerful communicators stand behind their words. They speak with clarity, certainty, and without apology. That doesn't mean they're rigid or unwilling to learn it. Means they believe in their perspective, even if it's still developing. They don't need to downplay their insights to make others comfortable. To avoid sounding weak, replace disclaimers with ownership phrases. Instead of, "This might not be right," say, "Here's what I'm seeing." Instead of, "Sorry, just a quick thought," say, "One thing we might consider is," speak in full voice. Say it like it matters, because if you don't believe it does, neither will anyone else. You don't need to shout or dominate a room to be taken seriously. You just need to stop making yourself small. Own your space. Own your voice. Speak with the quiet strength that says, "I trust myself enough to be heard." The biggest mistake that makes people sound weak is not what they say, it's that they apologize for saying it. Confident communication begins with internal permission to speak, to lead, and to contribute without shrinking back. Once you remove the self-doubt from your delivery, your words gain weight, and so does your presence. Understanding the psychology behind words and influence. Understanding the psychology behind words and influence is essential for anyone who wants to lead, inspire, or make an impact. Words are not neutral, they carry emotion, intention, and power. They shape thoughts, trigger reactions, and build beliefs. Every sentence we speak sends signals to the brain, not just information, but emotional cues that determine how that information is received, processed, and remembered. If you want to influence others, you must understand how the mind responds to language. At its core, influence isn't about manipulation, it's about connection. It's about guiding how people feel about what you say, so they're more open to hearing and acting on your message. The brain is wired to respond to emotion first and logic second. That means people don't follow ideas, they follow feelings about ideas. When your words spark trust, hope, clarity, or motivation, you tap into the emotional centers of the brain that drive behavior. One psychological principle at play is framing. The way you frame your message changes how it's perceived. For instance, saying, "We have a 90% success rate," is far more encouraging than, "We have a 10% failure rate," even though both are statistically identical. The human brain is constantly evaluating safety, risk, and reward. Words that highlight potential, direction, and opportunity tend to increase engagement, while words that emphasize uncertainty or fear often cause withdrawal or resistance. Another key factor is priming the idea that certain words can activate specific mental associations before we even realize it. For example, if you start a conversation by saying, "Let's explore some exciting possibilities," people's brains are primed to think expansively and optimistically. But if you begin with, "We've got some serious problems," the mind shifts into defensive, analytical mode. Leaders who understand priming know how to carefully choose opening words that set a productive tone. Mirror neurons also play a role. These are brain cells that cause people to unconsciously mimic the emotional energy of the person speaking to them. If your language is tense, rushed, or scattered, it can create anxiety or confusion in your listeners. But if you speak calmly, with clear structure and emotional composure, you create a mirror of confidence in the listener's mind. This is why tone and rhythm are just as important as content. Your energy speaks before your words do. The psychology of influence also includes storytelling. Stories activate more areas of the brain than facts alone. When you tell a story, you create a shared experience, triggering imagination, empathy, and memory. People are more likely to remember and act on a story than a spreadsheet. Leaders who use narrative language don't just inform, they move people. Then there's the principle of authority and certainty. When people hear someone speak with conviction, they assume that person knows what they're talking about even before evidence is presented. If your words sound tentative, "I think maybe we should," or uncertain, "I'm not really sure, but," you weaken your influence. But when you speak with measured confidence, you're more likely to be perceived as a leader regardless of your title. Also essential is reciprocity in language. When you speak in ways that show respect, curiosity, and genuine interest in others, people naturally become more open to your ideas. This psychological reciprocity builds trust and makes influence a two-way exchange, not a top-down directive. Understanding the psychology behind words and influence means realizing that communication is not just about getting your point across. It's about shaping perception, building trust, and creating emotional momentum. The best communicators aren't just good with language, they understand how the brain hears it, feels it, and remembers it. Master this, and you don't just speak, you lead minds. You don't just deliver words, you create lasting impact. The connection between communication, authority, and trust. The connection between communication, authority, and trust is foundational to effective leadership. People don't follow titles, they follow the presence, clarity, and consistency of the person behind the role. At the center of this influence is how you communicate. The way you speak tells others how secure, prepared, and aligned you are. It broadcasts whether you can be trusted, whether you're worth listening to, and whether you're the kind of leader they should follow. Authority is earned through presence. Trust is built through consistency, and both are established, reinforced, or broken by your words. When you communicate clearly and confidently, you send a powerful psychological signal. I know what I'm doing, and you can rely on me. It's not about speaking loudly or using complex vocabulary. In fact, those things often backfire. True authority comes from clarity. When your ideas are well organized, your tone is calm, and your words are direct, people feel safe in your leadership. They assume you're thoughtful, competent, and composed, three traits that build both perceived authority and deep trust. But communication isn't only about clarity, it's also about alignment. People are watching to see if your words match your actions. When you say one thing but behave another way, trust erodes instantly. On the other hand, when your communication is consistent with your values and behavior over time, people begin to trust that what you say is what you mean, and what you mean is what you'll do. That alignment builds credibility, which is the cornerstone of both trust and authority. Empathy plays a critical role too. Leaders who listen well and communicate with emotional awareness strengthen relationships and deepen influence. When you acknowledge others' concerns, use inclusive language, and speak with care, not just command, you gain respect. People begin to trust you not only as a decision maker, but as someone who sees them. That emotional trust becomes the foundation for productive, loyal, and high-performing teams. There's also a rhythm to authoritative communication. Those who speak too much, too often, or too vaguely lose credibility over time. But those who speak when it matters clearly, calmly, and with purpose command the room. They don't chase approval. They speak from vision. And their words have weight because they've built a reputation for meaning what they say. Another essential component is the ability to communicate under pressure. Anyone can speak well when things are going smoothly. But leaders earn trust and authority when they maintain composure in high-stakes conversations. When you stay grounded, choose your words wisely, and respond rather than react, people see you as steady. That steadiness makes them more willing to follow you into uncertain or challenging terrain. Communication also defines the boundaries of culture. As a leader, how you talk becomes the model for how others talk. If you speak with respect, transparency, and clarity, those values trickle down. But if you lead with blame, vagueness, or defensiveness, that becomes the tone of the team. Authority is not just a personal trait, it's a tone you set for everyone else to follow. And trust is not a single moment, it's the echo of your words over time. Communication is not separate from leadership, is leadership. It's how vision is shared, how expectations are set, how relationships are built, and how momentum is sustained. Authority doesn't come from demanding control. It comes from communicating with confidence, conviction, and care. And trust isn't won by force, it's built word by word. In every conversation, every promise kept, every message delivered with intention. To lead is to communicate, and to communicate well is to earn the right to lead. Chapter 2. Speaking with clarity and confidence. Communicating with purpose and precision means making every word count. It's about speaking with intention, knowing why you're saying something, what outcome you want, and delivering that message in the clearest, most effective way possible. In leadership, this ability is a superpower. When your communication is focused and deliberate, people trust your direction, respect your time, and follow your lead without confusion. The first step to purposeful communication is clarity of intent. Before you speak, whether in a meeting, email, or casual conversation, ask yourself, what is the goal here? Are you informing, inspiring, asking for input, providing feedback? If your intention is unclear to you, it will be even more unclear to your audience. When you start with a clear purpose, you naturally eliminate vague language, filler phrases, and unnecessary side paths. Your words carry more weight because they're not random, they're targeted. Precision, on the other hand, is about how you say it. It's the art of selecting the right words, tone, and structure to deliver your message with maximum clarity and minimal friction. Precise communication avoids generalities. Instead of saying, "We need to improve our numbers," a precise communicator says, "We need to increase client retention by 15% this quarter." That difference matters. It gives people something specific to understand, act on, and measure. Purposeful communicators also respect people's time and attention. They avoid rambling, stay on topic, and don't overload others with unnecessary details. This doesn't mean being robotic or cold, it means being intentional. It's knowing when to pause, when to summarize, and when to ask a question instead of making another point. It means choosing the essential over the excessive. A big part of precision is preparation. Strong communicators take time to organize their thoughts before speaking. They may mentally outline the key points they want to make, anticipate objections, or rehearse how to frame a difficult message. Even a 30-second pause before speaking can make your delivery more composed and impactful. You don't have to script every word, but you should be anchored in what matters most. Listening is also essential to purposeful communication. When you listen well, you tailor your response to what people actually need, not what you assume they need. You become more adaptive, more effective, and more trusted. Precision comes not only from your ability to speak clearly, but from your ability to respond accurately. Tone and body language must also align with your words. If your message is confident, but your posture is slouched, or your voice trails off, you create mixed signals. When your tone, facial expressions, and pace support your message, it becomes far more believable and memorable. You're not just speaking, you're transmitting confidence and clarity through every channel. Purposeful communication includes follow-through. You say what you mean, and then you mean what you say. When you speak with clarity and then back it up with action, your words gain power over time. People start to listen more closely because they know your words aren't empty. They're signals of direction, decisions, and integrity. In a noisy world, precision and purpose are rare, and that's why they stand out. Communicating this way doesn't mean saying more. It means saying less with greater impact. It means cutting through clutter, building trust quickly, and leading people with language that is focused, honest, and effective. Speak like this, and people won't just hear you, they'll follow you. Eliminating filler words, vagueness, and passive tone. Eliminating filler words, vagueness, and a passive tone is essential for becoming a clear, confident communicator, and even more critical when you're aiming to lead. These subtle patterns in speech may seem harmless, but they erode your authority, weaken your message, and make it harder for others to follow your direction. The way you speak signals the strength of your thinking, and when your speech is cluttered or uncertain, people subconsciously question your clarity and confidence. Filler words like like, you know, sort of, I think, and basically often sneak into speech when the brain is catching up to the mouth. While they're natural in conversation, overusing them sends a signal that you're unsure, hesitant, or unprepared. They distract from your message and dilute your impact. For example, saying, "I was," like, thinking that maybe we should consider a different approach, sounds unsure and unconvincing. A stronger version would be, "Let's consider a different approach." To eliminate fillers, the first step is awareness. Record yourself speaking or practice delivering your ideas out loud. Pay attention to which fillers you lean on. Then train yourself to pause instead. Silence is more powerful than most people realize. It shows composure and gives the listener time to absorb your message. Pausing instead of filling the space makes you sound more intentional and in control. Vagueness is another credibility killer. It occurs when you use overly broad language, avoid specifics, or speak in abstract terms without concrete direction. Phrases like, "We should probably do something about that," or "maybe we could try fixing it later," don't inspire confidence. They leave your listeners confused about what needs to be done, when, and by whom. Precise communication, on the other hand, cuts through the fog. Instead of saying, "soon," say, "by Friday at noon." Instead of "improve the process," say, "reduce onboarding time by 30%. The more specific your language, the easier it is for others to understand, act on, and trust you. Leaders who speak precisely are seen as more capable because they create clarity where others create confusion. Then there's passive tone, which can subtly communicate indecisiveness or avoidance of responsibility. Passive constructions like "mistakes were made" or "it could be done by someone" remove the subject from the action and weaken your voice. They hide accountability and make it harder to know who is responsible for what. In contrast, active language, "we missed the deadline," or "I'll take care of that," is direct, responsible, and confident. A passive tone also includes phrases like, "I'm not sure, but," or "this might not make sense, but." These weaken your position before you even make it. If you constantly preface your ideas with disclaimers, people will start tuning you out. Strong communicators own their ideas and speak with confidence, even when expressing uncertainty. Instead of saying, "this might be wrong," say, "here's one way we could look at it." Improving your communication in these areas requires practice, not perfection. Start small. Choose one filler to eliminate, one vague phrase to replace with specifics, or one passive sentence to make active. Over time, your speech becomes sharper, cleaner, and more powerful. People will notice, and they'll begin to listen more closely. Why? Because confident, precise communication earns attention. It builds trust. It reflects leadership. The goal isn't to sound robotic or overly formal, it's to sound intentional. Every word you cut, every vague phrase you replace, every passive construction you rewrite sharpens your message and strengthens your presence. And when your speech becomes more purposeful, so does your influence. Projecting calm, control, and credibility through your voice. Projecting calm, control, and credibility through your voice is one of the most underrated skills in communication and one of the most powerful. The way you sound often speaks louder than what you actually say. Your tone, pace, volume, and rhythm all communicate emotional cues that people respond to instantly, often without realizing it. When your voice reflects calm confidence, people feel reassured. When it carries clarity and control, they're more likely to trust you, follow you, and believe in what you're saying. In high-pressure environments, your voice becomes a barometer. If your tone is shaky, rushed, or tense, people may sense panic even if your words are steady. But if your voice is measured, composed, and grounded, you create a sense of safety and authority, regardless of how chaotic things may seem. Leaders who speak with calm authority can de-escalate tension, diffuse conflict, and rally people forward even during uncertainty simply by the energy they transmit through their voice. One key to projecting calm is your pace. Speaking too fast can make you seem nervous, scattered, or unsure. Slowing down even slightly sends a signal that you're in control of both your thoughts and the room. It shows that you don't feel rushed or overwhelmed, and it gives your audience space to absorb your message. Strategic pauses between points or before responding to a question give the impression of thoughtfulness and composure. Your tone is just as critical. A calm, steady tone free from sharp spikes or abrupt changes communicates emotional control. It conveys that you're not easily rattled, even under stress. This kind of emotional steadiness earns respect. People instinctively trust someone who doesn't rise and fall emotionally with every challenge. Your tone should reflect quiet confidence and no arrogance, not aggression, but certainty. Volume matters too. Speaking too softly can come off as insecure, while shouting feels aggressive and domineering. The sweet spot is a firm, even volume that projects across a room without strain. You want to sound like someone who doesn't need to overpower others to be heard, someone whose words carry weight, simply because they are grounded and intentional. Rhythm and inflection, how your voice rises and falls, also play a role. A flat, monotonous delivery can make you seem bored or disengaged. But too much inflection can feel performative or overly emotional. The goal is natural variation that emphasizes key points, keeps attention, and expresses interest without sounding theatrical. A well-placed rise in tone can convey curiosity, while a firm drop at the end of a sentence signals conviction. Breathing is often overlooked, yet it's foundational to vocal control. Shallow, quick breaths create tension in your voice. Deep, steady breathing before and during speech supports a strong, grounded tone. When you breathe from your diaphragm, your voice becomes fuller, clearer, and more resonant. This not only sounds better, it feels better. It reduces anxiety and anchors you in the moment. Perhaps the most important ingredient, though, is intention. People can sense when you're speaking just to fill space versus when you're speaking with purpose. Calm and credibility aren't just about vocal technique, they're about alignment. When your message, mindset, and delivery are in sync, your voice becomes magnetic. You don't have to try to sound confident, you are confident, and it shows. Your voice is more than sound, it's your presence made audible. It reflects your internal state. When you speak with clarity, calm, and control, you project leadership. You become the voice people turn to in moments of doubt, the presence that steadies a room, the communicator who speaks not just to inform but to lead, inspire, and earn trust. Chapter 3. Communication that builds trust and connection. Using empathy, authenticity, and consistency in every conversation is what transforms communication from transactional to transformational. These qualities aren't soft extras, they are essential to building trust, deepening connection, and establishing yourself as a credible and respected leader. People don't just listen to what you say, they feel how you say it. And when your words consistently reflect empathy, honesty, and reliability, others are more likely to follow your lead not because they have to, but because they want to. Empathy is the ability to understand and feel what another person is experiencing. In communication, it shows up in how you listen, how you respond, and how you consider the emotions behind someone's words. Empathy doesn't mean agreeing with everything or absorbing others' problems. It means creating space for people to feel heard and understood. It's the difference between saying, "I hear you," and actually listening long enough to prove it. When someone feels seen and acknowledged, their resistance drops and real dialogue begins. Empathetic communication means being present, not interrupting, not planning your reply while the other person is talking, and not brushing off what seems small to you but matters to them. It's in asking thoughtful questions, in validating experiences even when you don't share them, and in recognizing the human emotion underneath the topic. Whether you're delivering feedback, navigating conflict, or celebrating wins, leading with empathy allows you to meet people where they are and from there, guide them forward. Authenticity is what gives your words meaning. It's the expression of your real thoughts, values, and intentions. People are incredibly good at detecting inauthenticity. They can feel when someone is saying what sounds right instead of what they actually believe. Leaders who communicate authentically don't pretend to have all the answers, and they don't hide behind corporate jargon or scripted phrases. Instead, they speak plainly, honestly, and with conviction even when the truth is uncomfortable. Authenticity builds respect. It shows that you're trustworthy because you're not trying to manipulate perception. You're not trying to be perfect, you're trying to be real. When people know where you stand, they're more willing to stand with you. Even in disagreement, authentic communication invites loyalty. Why? Because people would rather follow someone who is real and flawed than someone who is polished but disconnected. Consistency ties it all together. It's not enough to be empathetic once or authentic in one meeting. What matters is how you show up over time. Are you steady in your tone and message? Do you treat people with the same level of respect whether they agree with you or not? Do your words match your actions? Consistency builds psychological safety. It tells people what to expect from you, and that predictability creates trust. If you say you value honesty but avoid difficult conversations, your inconsistency creates confusion. If you show empathy one-on-one but act cold in public, people question which version of you is real. If you encourage feedback but punish disagreement, trust evaporates. Consistency doesn't mean being rigid, it means being aligned. It means your communication reflects your values, again and again, no matter the audience or circumstance. Together, empathy, authenticity, and consistency form a powerful communication framework. Empathy makes people feel heard. Authenticity makes you believable. Consistency makes you trustworthy. When you bring these into every conversation, whether it's a performance review, a team huddle, or a hard personal discussion, you create connection, clarity, and influence. People may forget the details of what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel. And when your presence consistently says, "You matter, this matters, I mean what I say," that's when communication becomes leadership. That's when conversations move people. That's when your words carry real, lasting power. Creating psychological safety and rapport with your team. Creating psychological safety and rapport with your team is one of the most critical things a leader can do to build trust, foster innovation, and unlock full potential. Psychological safety means that team members feel safe to express themselves without fear of embarrassment, rejection, or punishment. It's not about avoiding accountability or difficult conversations. It's about cultivating an environment where people feel respected, valued, and emotionally secure enough to take risks, speak up, and bring their full selves to the table. At the core of psychological safety is the belief that it's okay to be human here. That means it's okay to ask questions, admit mistakes, challenge ideas, and share honest thoughts without being shut down or shamed. When people feel this kind of safety, they're more likely to engage, contribute creative solutions, and collaborate authentically. When it's absent, they retreat, perform to survive, to excel, and often operate with one foot out the door. The first step in creating this safety is how you listen. Listening without interrupting, judging, or immediately offering a fix tells people that their voice matters. It shows that you're not just looking for agreement, you're interested in perspective. Leaders who practice active listening, making eye contact, nodding, reflecting back what they hear, build rapport and create space for honesty. Tone matters too. If someone brings up a concern and your tone becomes dismissive or defensive, they learn it's not truly safe to share. But if your tone is curious, calm, and open, even when the feedback is hard to hear, you show that disagreement isn't a threat, it's a chance for growth. Psychological safety doesn't mean everyone always agrees, it means people can disagree without fear. Another key is modeling vulnerability. When leaders admit when they're wrong, ask for input, or say, "I don't have all the answers," they set a tone that perfection isn't the goal, progress is. This makes it easier for others to follow suit. People are more willing to take risks and own mistakes when they see their leader doing the same. Clarity also builds safety. When expectations are vague or constantly shifting, anxiety rises. But when roles, goals, and values are clearly defined, people feel grounded. They know what's expected and what success looks like. That clarity allows them to relax mentally and focus on meaningful contribution instead of scanning the environment for hidden rules or traps. Consistency reinforces that safety. If one day you're approachable and the next you're volatile or closed off, people become cautious. They start self-editing. Consistent behavior, tone, and values send the message that the environment is predictable and emotionally stable, which encourages openness and trust. Small daily actions also matter. Asking people how they're really doing, recognizing effort as well as outcomes, celebrating small wins, and showing appreciation in meetings. These behaviors may seem simple, but over time, they build a deep sense of connection. Rapport isn't built through grand gestures, it's built moment by moment, in how people feel in your presence. Empowerment is key. When you give team members real responsibility, invite their input, and implement their ideas, you show that they're not just hired hands, they're partners in the mission. That feeling of ownership strengthens both safety and commitment. When psychological safety and rapport are present, teams perform at a higher level. People take initiative, they recover faster from failure. They bring more energy, creativity, and heart to their work. And perhaps most importantly, they trust that they belong not in spite of their differences, but because of them. In that kind of culture, leadership isn't just top-down, it becomes shared, and everyone rises. Repairing miscommunication while maintaining respect. Repairing miscommunication while maintaining respect is a vital leadership skill and one that defines how well a team or relationship can grow through conflict. Miscommunication is inevitable. People interpret messages through their own filters of experience, emotion, and expectation. But what separates strong communicators from weak ones is not the absence of misunderstandings, it's how they recover from them. When miscommunication happens, most people feel one of two things: confused or threatened. That emotional reaction can escalate tension quickly if not handled with care. The key is to respond, not react. Instead of defending yourself or immediately correcting the other person, the first step is to pause and acknowledge the impact of the miscommunication, because in human relationships, perception is reality. The goal isn't to prove you were right. It's to restore clarity without damaging connection. Start by owning your part, even if your intent was good. Saying, "It seems what I said didn't come across the way I meant it," or "Let me make sure I understand what you heard," shows humility and a desire to reconnect rather than dominate. This small gesture of responsibility can diffuse defensiveness and reopen the door to respectful dialogue. Next, focus on clarity, not blame. Instead of "you misunderstood me," say, "Let me rephrase that more clearly." This shifts the conversation from accusation to collaboration. It communicates that you value the relationship more than being right. It also models the kind of emotionally mature behavior that invites the other person to meet you there. Respect is preserved not only in the words you use, but in your tone. If you sound dismissive, sarcastic, or impatient, even subtle, it can reignite conflict. A calm, measured voice conveys openness and reduces the emotional temperature of the conversation. Use language that invites dialogue. "Help me understand where we went off track," or "What were you feeling when I said that?" Listening plays a critical role here. Allow the other person to fully explain how they experienced the miscommunication without interrupting or rushing to explain your side. Validating their feelings doesn't mean you agree with everything. They simply need to know you care how your words or actions landed. Often, people don't need a perfect explanation, they need to feel seen. After the air is cleared, reinforce trust by clearly restating your intention. For example, "What I meant was that I value your input and want to find a way that works for both of us." This not only repairs the content of the message, but also reaffirms the relationship which is just as important. Miscommunication creates cracks in trust. Careful repair reinforces it. Lastly, learn from the breakdown. Ask yourself, was I vague? Did I assume too much? Was my tone aligned with my message? Every miscommunication is a chance to improve how you lead, speak, and listen. When you treat it as a lesson, not just a problem, you become more self-aware, and your communication becomes sharper over time. In leadership, your ability to repair communication with respect shows people who you are when things go wrong. That's when your credibility is tested, and your influence is either weakened or strengthened. When people see that you can navigate misunderstanding with grace, own your part without ego, and protect the relationship even in tension, they trust you more deeply. Respect isn't lost through conflict, it's lost through how conflict is handled. But when miscommunication is met with humility, clarity, and emotional control, it becomes a moment of growth rather than division. That's how strong teams are built, how trust is earned, and how leadership becomes something people feel, not just follow. Chapter 4. Navigating high-stakes conversations. Handling conflict without losing composure is one of the most important skills a leader or emotionally mature individual can develop. Conflict is inevitable, whether in the workplace, relationships, or day-to-day life. But what defines your character and effectiveness is not whether conflict happens, but how you manage yourself in the middle of it. Composure during conflict communicates strength, respect, and emotional intelligence. It helps you resolve issues with clarity rather than chaos, and it allows others to trust you even in tense moments. The first step is mastering your initial reaction. When someone challenges you, criticizes you, or raises their voice, your nervous system naturally prepares for fight or flight. Your heart rate increases, your thoughts race, and the urge to defend yourself or strike back can be overwhelming. But in that split second, you must choose response over reaction. A deep breath, a pause, or even a slight physical shift, like relaxing your shoulders, can help break the emotional surge and give your brain time to re-engage with reason. Composure doesn't mean suppressing your emotions. It means managing them. It's the ability to acknowledge what you feel without letting that emotion hijack your behavior. You can think, "I'm feeling defensive right now," without becoming defensive in your response. This self-awareness allows you to stay grounded and focused on resolution rather than retaliation. Language is another key component. In moments of conflict, the words you choose can either escalate tension or open space for resolution. Avoid blame-laced statements like, "you always," or "you never," and instead use calm, constructive phrasing such as, "Here's how I experienced that," or "let's work through this together." When you focus on facts, impact, and solutions instead of accusations, you shift the tone from attack to understanding. Tone and body language also matter greatly. You can say the right words, but if your tone is sharp or your posture is closed off, your message may still come across as hostile. A calm, even tone and open, non-threatening body language convey that you are in control not just of the situation, but of yourself. This helps de-escalate others too, because emotions are contagious. When you stay composed, you unconsciously invite others to do the same. Another essential principle is listening fully before responding. Often in conflict, we listen just enough to prepare our rebuttal but not enough to understand. Composure means holding space, even when it's uncomfortable, so that the other person feels heard. You don't have to agree with them, but when you show that you're willing to listen without interrupting or invalidating, you reduce defensiveness and increase the chances of a productive resolution. When it's time to speak, speak with clarity, not emotion-driven exaggeration or dramatics. Focus on what outcome you want, not just how you feel. Do you want an apology, a change in behavior, a shared understanding? Let that intention guide your words. Emotional outbursts may feel good in the moment, but they rarely get you closer to what actually matters. Also, know when to step away. Maintaining composure sometimes means removing yourself from the heat of the moment to gather your thoughts. Saying, "Let's take a short break and come back to this when we're calmer," is not avoidance, it's wisdom. It shows that you care about resolving the issue, but not at the expense of respect or mental clarity. Reflect afterward. Ask yourself, did I stay calm? Did I speak with clarity and respect? What can I learn about my own triggers and patterns? This kind of post-conflict self-awareness strengthens your emotional resilience for the next challenge. When you learn to handle conflict without losing composure, you gain more than control, you gain influence. You become someone others feel safe around, even in hard moments. You show that disagreement doesn't shake your integrity. And most importantly, you create a culture, whether in a family, team, or organization, where truth can be spoken, problems can be addressed, and respect never has to be sacrificed. Delivering constructive feedback with clarity and grace. Delivering constructive feedback with clarity and grace is a leadership art that strengthens trust, fosters growth, and enhances performance when done well. It's not about criticizing or pointing out flaws. It's about helping someone improve while preserving their dignity. When feedback is delivered clearly and gracefully, it becomes a gift, not a punishment. But when it's poorly framed, it can create defensiveness, damage relationships, and shut down communication. The foundation of constructive feedback begins with intention. Before you speak, ask yourself, am I doing this to help the other person grow or just to release my frustration? Feedback should come from a place of care, not correction alone. If your tone communicates impatience or disappointment, even the best advice will fall flat. But if your motive is genuine support, it will be felt and your words will land more softly. Clarity starts with being specific. Vague statements like, "You need to do better," or "That wasn't great," leave people confused about what exactly went wrong or how to improve. Instead, point to observable actions. In the client meeting, you interrupted several times during key points. It made the client seem frustrated. Then, offer a clear suggestion. Try taking notes and responding after the speaker finishes to create a more respectful tone. This shifts the feedback from personal critique to practical guidance. Grace, on the other hand, is about how you deliver the message. Your tone, timing, and body language all matter. A calm, non-judgmental tone creates safety. Choosing a private setting shows respect. Giving the person your full attention, making eye contact, sitting at their level, and removing distractions communicates care and presence. These small details help soften the discomfort that can come with being corrected. A powerful technique is the situation, behavior, impact model. Describe the situation, the specific behavior, and the impact it had. For example, yesterday, during the team update situation, you seemed disengaged and checked your phone multiple times. Behavior. That gave the impression that you weren't invested in the project. Impact. This approach removes blame and keeps the feedback focused and neutral. Avoid making it about who the person is. Feedback should never attack character, only focus on behavior and improvement. Saying, "You're careless," shuts down the conversation. Saying, "There were several errors in the report, and I'd like to help you improve the review process," keeps the door open. It signals that you believe in their ability to grow, rather than labeling them with a flaw. It's also important to check in during the feedback. Pause and ask, "Does that make sense?" Or, "How do you see it from your side?" This invites dialogue instead of dictation and gives the other person a chance to clarify or provide context. It reinforces that feedback is a two-way conversation, not a lecture. End the conversation by reinforcing confidence and partnership. Remind the person that you're not just pointing out mistakes, you're invested in their success. Phrases like, "I know you're capable of handling this," or "I'm here to support you as you work on it," go a long way. They show belief, which is one of the most powerful motivators. Follow up. Feedback isn't a one-time moment, it's part of a growth relationship. If someone improves, acknowledge it. If they struggle, offer support. When feedback becomes part of a culture of learning rather than criticism, people stop fearing it. They begin to seek it because they trust that it comes with care, clarity, and respect. Delivering constructive feedback with clarity and grace doesn't just improve performance. It builds people, it strengthens relationships, and it creates an environment where honesty and kindness can coexist, where accountability feels like empowerment, not punishment. That's how feedback becomes more than instruction. It becomes leadership in action, turning tension into opportunity through careful dialogue. Turning tension into opportunity through careful dialogue is a powerful leadership and communication skill. Tension, whether it's between colleagues, within teams, or in high-stakes conversations, is often seen as a threat, something to be avoided or suppressed. But in truth, tension signals that something important is surfacing: a misalignment, a misunderstanding, or an unmet need. When approached skillfully, these moments can lead to breakthroughs, deeper trust, and stronger collaboration. The first step is to reframe how you view tension. It isn't necessarily a problem, it's energy. That energy can destroy or it can transform, depending on how you engage with it. Tension shows that people care enough to feel strongly. It means there's something meaningful on the table. Leaders who learn to sit with that discomfort and lean into it, not defensively, but with curiosity, unlock potential that many never tap into. Careful dialogue begins with emotional regulation. When emotions run high, the nervous system can hijack your ability to listen, reason, or respond thoughtfully. That's why it's critical to center yourself before you speak. Breathe deeply. Ground your body. Enter the conversation not to win or control, but to understand. Your calm presence will naturally influence the tone of the exchange. Start by acknowledging the tension. Avoid pretending everything is fine or dancing around the issue. Say something direct yet respectful, such as, "I sense there's some tension around this topic, let's talk about it openly." This simple statement signals emotional maturity and sets the stage for transparency. Then ask thoughtful, non-judgmental questions. What's your perspective on what's happening? Or, can you help me understand what's been frustrating for you? These questions invite the other person into the conversation as a partner, not an opponent. They also shift the dynamic from confrontation to collaboration. People often lower their guard when they feel they're being invited to speak, not attacked. As you listen, resist the urge to interrupt, correct, or mentally build your counterpoint. Your focus should be on understanding, not debating. Reflect back what you hear. "So you're saying you felt overlooked in the decision processes, that right?" This validation doesn't mean agreement, it means respect. It proves you're truly listening. Once the emotional air begins to clear, transition to shared goals. We both want this project to succeed. Let's figure out how to move forward with less friction. By reconnecting to a common purpose, you turn the energy of conflict into momentum. It reminds everyone that the goal isn't to be right. It's to get it right together. In these moments, clarity is critical. Avoid vague language or assumptions. Be direct, but gentle. Say what you mean with kindness and precision. If you need to address behavior, do it respectfully. When deadlines are missed, the whole team feels the pressure. Let's work out how to avoid that moving forward. Keep the focus on the future, not past blame. Express appreciation. If someone was willing to have a hard conversation with you, thank them. That level of honesty is rare and valuable. Ending on a note of respect and gratitude reinforces that tension, when handled well, leads not to break down, but to break through. When you turn tension into opportunity through dialogue, you model emotional intelligence, courage, and maturity. You show that hard conversations don't have to damage relationships, they can deepen them. That mindset transforms not only how others see you, but how they respond to future challenges. Because when people know you're someone who listens, leads with care, and doesn't shy away from truth, they lean in on a way, and that's when real growth begins. Chapter 5. Inspiring others with vision and presence. Using storytelling to lead, motivate, and move people is one of the most powerful and timeless tools in leadership. While data can inform and instructions can direct, stories connect. They bypass resistance, engage the heart, and make information unforgettable. A well-told story doesn't just communicate, it transforms. It bridges the gap between logic and emotion, helping people understand not just what to do, but why it matters. Effective leaders use storytelling not for entertainment, but to build trust, create meaning, and inspire action. When you tell a story, you humanize yourself. You're no longer just a title or authority figure, you become relatable. People follow leaders they feel connected to, and stories create that connection faster than facts ever could. The most powerful stories leaders tell often follow a simple but effective arc, a relatable challenge, a turning point, and a lesson learned. This structure mirrors real life. Whether you're describing a moment of personal failure that led to growth, a team overcoming the odds, or a customer transformed by your product or mission, the story creates a narrative people can see themselves in. They don't just hear it, they feel it. Storytelling becomes especially impactful in times of change, uncertainty, or conflict. During these moments, facts alone can feel cold or overwhelming. But a story of how a previous challenge was faced and overcome instills hope. It anchors people in resilience. For example, saying, "Let me tell you about a time we almost didn't make payroll, but came together and pulled through," can do more to inspire perseverance than charts or forecasts ever will. When used to motivate, storytelling taps into emotion, particularly purpose. People want to feel like their work matters, that it contributes to something bigger than themselves. A leader who can tell the story of the company's founding, or of a client whose life was changed, turns abstract goals into something human and real. Suddenly, the spreadsheet becomes a story. The task becomes a mission. In moments of tension or pushback, stories also disarm. Rather than confronting resistance with hard logic, a well-placed story invites empathy. It says, "I've been where you are," or "Others have walked this path too." This reduces defensiveness and creates room for dialogue. It's why great leaders don't just give directives, they give context. And context often lives inside a story. To use storytelling effectively, authenticity is key. Over-rehearsed, manipulative, or overly polished stories feel forced and disingenuous. But when your story is personal, sincere, and told with purpose, people respond. Speak from your own experiences. Share lessons you've lived, not just ideas you've read. Vulnerability, when paired with strength, is magnetic. Delivery also matters. A good story needs the right pacing, tone, and pauses. Don't rush. Let the moments land. Use vivid, concrete details that engage the senses. What did you see, feel, hear? The more immersive the story, the more it lives in the listener's mind. Avoid trying to impress, focus instead on trying to connect. Don't underestimate the small stories. Not every tale needs to be dramatic or life-altering. A short anecdote about a moment of kindness, a lesson from failure, or a surprising insight can be just as moving as a major triumph. Sometimes the most relatable stories are the ones rooted in everyday life. When used consistently, Storytelling doesn't just inform a culture, it shapes it. It reinforces values, celebrates progress, and aligns people around a shared vision. In the hands of a leader, storytelling becomes a compass, a way to keep people moving in the same direction, even when the road gets hard. Because in the end, people don't remember every meeting, metric, or email. They remember how they felt. And often, it's a story that created that feeling. That's the true power of storytelling. It doesn't just lead people to understand, it leads them to believe, to care, and to act. Crafting messages that align with purpose and values. Crafting messages that align with purpose and values is essential for building trust, inspiring action, and creating consistency in leadership communication. In a world flooded with information and noise, people are not just listening for what you say, they're listening for why you say it. When your message is rooted in a deeper sense of purpose and grounded in clearly defined values, it doesn't just inform, it resonates. It connects. It leads. Purpose gives your communication direction. Values give it depth. Together, they serve as the compass for every message you deliver, whether you're addressing a team, writing a company-wide email, giving feedback, or speaking on stage. If your words don't align with your core mission and values, they may sound fine on the surface, but they will feel hollow underneath, and people can sense that. Alignment begins with clarity. Before you speak or write, ask, what do I want people to feel, know, and don't? How does that support our larger mission? If your purpose is to create a culture of ownership and accountability, then your words should empower, not micromanage. If your values include transparency and integrity, then even when delivering tough messages, your tone should be honest, respectful, and clear, not sugar-coated or vague. Great communicators constantly return to the why. They don't just talk about what needs to happen, they remind people of the greater impact. For instance, instead of saying, "We need to meet this deadline," a leader aligned with purpose might say, "Meeting this deadline helps us deliver on the promise we made to our clients and to each other." It shifts the task from obligation to commitment. That shift is what creates buy-in. Values-based communication also means being consistent. If you preach collaboration but your messages are top-down and dismissive, people will feel the disconnect and trust will erode. But when your messages mirror your behavior and your beliefs, people learn to trust not just your words, but your leadership. They know what you stand for, and that brings clarity to uncertain moments. Tone plays a critical role in alignment too. A message rooted in empathy, humility, and authenticity reflects values of respect and human-centered leadership. Even when delivering hard truths, a values-aligned communicator speaks with compassion and calm. This earns respect and keeps communication lines open even in times of tension or change. Language choice is another subtle but powerful tool. Purpose-aligned leaders avoid jargon, blame, and performative language. Instead, they use clear, emotionally intelligent words that reflect who they are and what they stand for. Phrases like, "We're in this together," "Let's take responsibility," or "Here's how this connects to our mission," consistently reinforce the core values behind the message. It's also important to adapt your communication without abandoning your values. Speaking to different audiences, your team, stakeholders, or customers may require a change in tone or format, but the essence of your message should remain the same. That consistency is what builds identity, unity, and long-term credibility. Alignment with purpose and values gives your message staying power. Words that are only tactical are easily forgotten. But words that echo a deeper mission live on. They inspire reflection. They create alignment. They shape culture. When your messages are anchored in purpose and values, you stop communicating just to inform and start communicating to lead. You give people more than direction. You give them meaning. And in leadership, That's what moves people, not just to follow instructions, but to follow you. Practicing daily habits to speak like a true leader. Practicing daily habits to speak like a true leader means committing to intentional communication every single day, not just during big meetings or formal presentations. Great leadership isn't measured by one powerful speech. It's revealed in the consistent, everyday moments, when your words shape how people feel, think, and act. To speak like a true leader, you must develop habits that build clarity, confidence, and connection into your language, tone, and presence. One of the most fundamental habits is conscious word choice. Leaders speak with purpose. They avoid vague, filler-filled, or overly complicated language. Instead, they choose words that are clear, strong, and easy to understand. Daily practice might involve pausing before responding, mentally rehearsing your thoughts in simpler terms, or reviewing past conversations to see where your message could have been clearer. Over time, this habit sharpens your ability to speak with precision and authority. Another habit is active listening. It might seem counterintuitive, but powerful speaking begins with powerful listening. Make it a daily practice to listen without interrupting, to reflect back what you've heard, and to observe not just the words, but the tone and body language of the speaker. The better you understand others, the more relevant, respectful, and impactful your responses will be. People are more likely to follow a leader who listens before they speak. A leader also reads the room not just literally, but emotionally. Practicing emotional awareness daily helps you adjust your tone to match the moment. Are people anxious, excited, frustrated, or confused? Speaking like a leader means responding with the right emotional tone, calm during stress, energized during slow moments, firm during conflict. This awareness allows your words to land in ways that foster trust and alignment. Leaders also speak with confidence, not ego. A daily habit that supports this is practicing your posture and breathing. Stand tall, speak from your diaphragm, and use pauses instead of filler words like, you know, or like. Confidence is not about speaking louder, it's about speaking calmly and with belief in what you're saying. Try recording yourself regularly or practicing short statements in front of a mirror. Over time, your delivery will feel more grounded and controlled. Incorporating a daily reflection habit is equally valuable. At the end of each day, ask yourself, did I speak with clarity? Did I lead with empathy? Did I communicate my vision and values clearly? Writing down even brief reflections trains your mind to become more self-aware and deliberate over time. Another key habit is consistency. Leaders don't change their tone or message based on who's in the room. They speak with the same level of respect to everyone from interns to executives. Practice speaking to people with full presence and equal dignity, no matter their position. This builds integrity and trust, cornerstones of effective leadership. Storytelling is another daily habit to develop. You don't need a grand narrative every day, but look for small, meaningful moments that carry a lesson or insight. Whether it's something your child said, a problem your team solved, or a challenge you overcame, sharing short stories helps people connect with you on a human level. Practice noticing the stories in your everyday life, they're everywhere. Adopt the habit of asking better questions. True leaders don't just make statements, they invite others to think, reflect, and engage. Get in the habit of asking thoughtful, open-ended questions like, "What do you think?" or "How can we do this better together?" Questions like these show that you value others' input and aren't just leading from the front, you're walking alongside. Speaking like a true leader is not about using fancy words or having perfect speeches. It's about building the discipline to speak with honesty, clarity, and intention every single day. It's about aligning your words with your values and using your voice to lift, guide, and unite the people around you. And the more you practice these habits, the more naturally leadership